So good morning all. As you have already discussed, started with the mechanism of drug action. After the pharmacokinetics, we started with the pharmacodynamics, and you know well pharmacodynamics. What is pharmacodynamics, isn't it? So pharmacodynamics actually, I'll give a simple example. In the first class itself, I told you that when paracetamol is given, paracetamol bring down your elevated body temperatures. You know, paracetamol is given for fever, pain, etc. Now when you consider paracetamol as antipyretics, antipyretics means reduce the body elevated body temperature. Okay, so when you give this drug which act on the prostaglandin synthesis, and prostaglandin can reset the thermostatic center in the hypothalamus, and that could be the mechanism of paracetamol in the fever. So this is in pharmacodynamics we discuss all those matter, right? So we have seen that various drugs act in various ways. Several ways are there for the a drug to act in the body. And this is a simple example I told you. Paracetamol inhibit cyclooxygenase enzyme. It's an enzyme. So there are plenty of drugs which inhibit enzymes. Say for example, allopurinol, which you have studied in the first year when we discussed about the enzyme kinetics, right? Then we also have cholinesterase inhibitors like physostigmine, neostigmine, etc. So that's also part of enzyme inhibition. Apart from this, you have also seen that those drugs which act on the primitive ion channels, so for example calcium channel blockers like nifedipine, amlodipine, etc. Then some of the drugs which act on the transporters. So see, there are various transporters which play crucial role in the modulation of the neuron transmitter and many other ion channels, etc. All right. So for example, the best example I can give you here is cocaine. Cocaine, you know that it's a indirectly acting sympathomimetic drug, and you are familiar with the term cocaine or the name cocaine because it's one of the widely abused drug, right? So it can produce euphoria and other state of well-being and all, and it inhibit the reuptake of norepinephrine, epinephrine, and dopamine at various level or various centers in the brain. So which contribute its euphoric effect or the abuse tendency, etc. So these are the few, and definitely initially you have discussed the drugs which acts due to its physical property, like what we have is kaolin or charcoal, due to its absorbent property, absorption property, not absorption, it is AD, absorption, you have studied in chemistry, right? Then we have also discussed some of the drugs which acts based on its radioactive property, iodine-131, which is used in thyroid carcinomas and other type of hyperthyroidism. Right. Fine. Now another important mechanism, that is receptors. All of you know well about receptors. Receptors are basically these are proteins. Okay, proteins. Receptors are proteins which either most of the receptors are located in the cell membrane. Exceptions are there. Some of the receptors may be present in the cytoplasm or even in the nucleus. So what is receptor? It's a basic molecular biology question. A receptor is something, a protein which communicate the communicate with the external signal and to the internal transducer mechanism. See, it's like a gateway which communicate the externally. There will be some signal messages, and these messages has to be converted into the effect by using certain transducer mechanism. One typical example I can give you is cyclic AMP. Alright, cyclic AMP is a typical example I can give you. Similarly, many other mechanisms are there. This is what we are going to discuss. We are intended to discuss with this class. Okay, and what we feel that receptors are very important, that should be discussed in detail. All right. So there are 4 types of receptors. We'll be discussing one by one. And the first type of receptors are G protein coupled receptors. G protein coupled receptors. Before explaining all this, I'll just show you the transmembrane part. There are 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 transmembrane helix with an extracellular domain and an intracellular domain. So usually it's an agonist or an antagonist, whatever, which bind at the receptor. Here, it can be it can be agonist and antagonist. I'll tell you what is agonist and antagonist now. Right. Here, when agonist bind, this otherwise it is generally regarded as a resting state. Okay, and it's usually bind with the G protein and a GDP. There will be a GDP with some subunits. That's why it's called G protein. Okay, why it is called G protein? Because it is always bound with a G protein inside the intracellular domain or and on the intracellular domain. Now here, as I told you, it has 7 helical membranes spanning. Then the G protein, I told you, it has alpha, beta and gamma subunits, and generally it is bind with, normally in a resting state, it is bind with a GDP. See, when there is no receptor occupied with a ligand, it will be GDP. Now, when an agonist bind with the ligand binding site, this GDP is substituted with the GDP. I'll show you that. Now, based on this, we have different types of G protein coupled receptors. One is GS, just for your kind information, GI, GO or G0. Some people denote that G0, it's GO or GQ. Now, this is all based on the transducer mechanism. If the transducer mechanism is based adenyl cyclase and cyclic AMP pathway, it is GS. And GI is something like decrease adenyl cyclase and increase potassium conductance, that is hyperpolarization of the cell. And GO is something like decrease calcium outflow or inflow, okay, passage of calcium through calcium channel. Then GQ is like increase the phospholipase C and the phospholipase C enzyme, same like adenyl cyclase enzyme, and thereby increase the IP3-DAG pathway. Alright, IP3-DAG pathway. So I repeat, this is G protein coupled receptors. It is called G protein coupled receptors because the intracellular domain is always bound with a G protein having 3 subunits alpha, beta and gamma. And apart from this, in a resting state, it is always occupied with the GDP. That's why it is called G protein. Okay. Now, what I'm telling here, it is when there is no ligand. Now, the picture will be changed when agonist bind with a ligand binding site. It will undergo some confirmatory changes, which substitute GTP with the GDP, and it get activated. Okay. And after this part is get activated only, all those things, the transducer mechanism, either it could be activation of adenyl cyclase and thereby cyclic AMP pathway, or it can be decrease adenyl cyclase or increase potassium conductance. That is actually inhibitory in nature. It's called GI, and G0 or GO, it is actually decreased calcium conductance through the channels. And finally GQ, it is activation of phospholipase C and thereby activating IP3-DAG pathway. And I hope you understood the basic concept. Now, I told you there are different transducer mechanism, and like I'll picturize this. See, in a resting state, I told you this is the receptor. This is the receptor. Now, this receptor is occupied with GDP and alpha, beta, gamma subunits of G protein. This is a resting state. Okay. Now, once a receptor is occupied. A receptor is occupied. The receptor or the ligand binding sites. Now you can see the GDP is being replaced by GTP, a GTP with the alpha, beta, gamma subunits. Okay, are you following? Right. Now this is something like this effector cells. Effector cells could be either phospholipase C or adenyl cyclase or even direct channels. So in a resting state, this will be inactivated. Now see the next step. This GTP bound with the GDP, I mean the G protein, G protein now is going to be activated. See, receptor alpha plus GTP compounds are separated from beta and gamma subunits. Now this activated, see when GTP bind with the alpha subunits, or it could be sometimes it can even bind with the other subunits also. Now in this picture I have depicted this scenario, that is GTP with the alpha subunits. Now the transducer mechanism is going to be activated by this GTP alpha subunits. Now see, hydrolysis of GTP to GDP, and here one ATP is utilized. So this phosphorylation, I hope you remember those pathways you have learned in biochemistry. Now see this being activated. Okay, now this activation could be either phosphorylation of some enzymes or dephosphorylation of some enzymes, or it could be the direct activation of the calcium channels, or even inactivation of the adenyl cyclase. So all the transducer mechanism we have discussed in the previous slides is applicable here. Now again, what happened once the transducer mechanism is get activated, what happened? This will go back to the resting state. See, the ligand is released from the receptor. Now again GDP is attached with all other subunits of G protein. Again this will be in a resting state. So this is a cyclic process. Is that clear? Should I repeat it? I'll repeat once again. A receptor, resting state, no activation. So generally G protein is bind with the GDP and there is no activation of the effector cells. Effector target may be adenyl cyclase or phospholipase C or even ion channel, whatever. Now agonist bind with the receptor, it undergoes some conformatory changes. As a result of the conformatory changes, GDP is substituted with the GTP and this get activated. Now this GTP with the subunits of G protein, that is alpha subunits, together get activate the transducer mechanism. That could be either adenyl cyclase, as I told you. Now what happened? The one GTP is converted to GDP, one phosphate group is released, and that is the energy, and that will change the phosphorylation, or that may cause phosphorylation dephosphorylation process. Again, we'll come back to the normal resting state. That's why it is called cycling state. I hope you understood the phenomenon. So the three major effector pathways I already told you. One is adenyl cyclase, that could be the effector. See, this effector could be either adenyl cyclase, phospholipase C, and channel regulation, especially like for potassium channels or the calcium channel. Now, if the adenyl cyclase enzyme is activated, which convert ATP into cyclic AMP. I'll explain this later. Next slide. Then if the phospholipase is activated, which activate synthesize IP3, inositol triphosphate, and diacyl glycerol. DAG stands for diacyl glycerol. See, this is what I'm talking is a molecular level topic. So I need your kind of attention. So please be with me and please listen my wordings, like what I'm using, like what I'm trying to explain. All right. And if you have any doubt in this topic, the teaching process, you can just directly message me on WhatsApp. Your class rep has got my number. If any doubts, because as we know that we are all facing practical difficulties to have the classes, definitely we'll come back to the normal scenario once all these problem is settled. Please understand the limitations and still we are open. I'm available 24 into 7. You can ping me anytime. Your rep has got my number. You can collect my number from them and see what is your feedback. And even I'm happy to know the feedback from your side, from each of you, so that we can make some changes in future. Fine. So the next or the first transducer mechanism I'm going to explain with the adenyl cyclase. So you remember generally receptor in resting state is the transducer pathway, the intracellular pathway is resting stage. Now the receptor is going to bind with a receptor ligand binding site. Now here this is what I told you, G protein get activated. This G protein is going to activate adenyl cyclase. Okay, the activator, you remember in the previous slide I have told you, G protein, the alpha subunit along with the GTP can activate the effector. The effector is here, adenyl cyclase. I repeat, adenyl cyclase enzyme. Now what is the role of adenyl cyclase? Simple. So you know that ATP can be converted into cyclic AMP, and all of you have learned that cyclic AMP is sometimes referred as secondary messenger. Okay, so we're going to discuss that part now, like secondary messenger. So here cyclic AMP can have various intracellular effects. One of these is the inactivated protein kinase can be activated by phosphorylation. So here the cyclic AMP give the hands for phosphorylation, and the phosphorylation leads to activation of the protein kinase. Now this protein kinase can have various role at the cellular level. Now, if I say a cellular level, the cell can be a liver cell, the cell can be smooth muscles like blood vessels, the cell can be cardiac muscles, okay, many, even the cell can be a skeletal muscle, any type of cells. Now you know that glycogen synthesis usually takes place in liver, and the enzyme is glycogen synthase. So this protein kinase can cause phosphorylation and dephosphorylation of the enzymes. Sometimes some enzymes after phosphorylation get activated, and some enzymes after phosphorylation get deactivated. Phosphorylation, dephosphorylation process. Now I'll give a classical example here. See, this is something like glycogen synthesis is usually carried out by glycogen synthase. So the phosphorylation of glycogen synthase inactivate glycogen synthesis. At the same time, glycogen phosphorylase is an enzyme. Glycogen phosphorylase is the enzyme responsible for the glycogen breakdown. Okay, so that phosphorylation process of that enzyme leads to activation, and which leads to glycogen breakdown. See, please remember the word I used, or the sentence I used. Phosphorylation of some enzymes leads to activation. At the same time, phosphorylation of some other enzymes leads to inactivation. Here I have given the example: decreased glycogen synthesis due to the inactivation of the glycogen synthase enzyme after phosphorylation. At the same time, increased glycogen breakdown, because glycogen phosphorylase is the key enzyme which can be activated by the phosphorylation of the glycogen phosphorylase enzyme. I hope you understood. Apart from this, it can also directly modulate the calcium channels, okay, especially in the cardiac muscles, and you know that calcium influx can definitely cause increased force of contraction of the heart muscle. So this is what happening in this regard. So I hope you understood the first transducer mechanism by adenyl cyclase, activation of adenyl cyclase. I hope it is clear now, and I repeat, if you have any doubt, because this is a basic concept, I'm trying to make you understand. If you have any doubt, please ask me. Right. Now the next mechanism is something like I told you, force activation of phospholipase C. Okay, so here again receptor occupied with a ligand that is usually GQ type, which activate the phospholipase C enzyme. In the previous it was adenyl cyclase. All right, so phospholipase C causes activation of phospholipase C causes inositol diphosphate split into or convert into IP3, that is triphosphate and diacylglycerol. So from PIP2 inositol triphosphate and diacylglycerol is formed. Okay, so these are basically which serve as cyclic AMP in the case of adenyl cyclase in the previous transducer mechanism. The same role here, the IP3 and DAG has got the same role. All right, fine. And this is again cyclic process. The IP3 again, see, which get converted into spontaneous process. IP2, IP1, inositol phosphate, inositol monophosphate and diphosphate. So this is a cyclic process. So whenever PIP2 is converted into DAG and IP3, this IP3 can have some cellular effects. After that IP3 become IP2 and IP1 monophosphate. Then inositol is released from phosphate or vice versa. Phosphate is released from inositol. Then PI inositol is again formed, and then finally PIP2 is formed. All right. Next is something like what I'm going to tell you. The same mechanism, protein kinase C activation. What happened? From ATP, ADP is formed and phosphate group is really freed, and that phosphorylation process again takes place here. And that can be leads to calmodulin activation, calcium release, especially in the cardiac muscles. It causes contraction. I'll give you one example, like when the heart, adrenaline causes increased force of contraction because adrenaline act on the adrenergic receptors, beta 1 receptors on the heart, which follow this transducer mechanism and which causes increased cardiac muscle contraction. I hope the second mechanism is clear now. And the third one, there won't be any such mechanism. Instead, there's activated, see, it is activated protein, see this activated effector cells, this pathway can directly activate calcium channel, directly, without any effector cells like adenyl cyclase or protein phospholipase C. All right. So I wanted to tell you a few more things regarding this, important examples for G protein coupled receptors. Can you tell me some of the important? See, your adrenergic receptors, alpha receptors, beta receptors, then cholinergic receptors. Cholinergic receptors are two types. One is muscarinic and nicotinic. Muscarinic receptors are basically G protein coupled receptors, whereas nicotinic is a different type, that is ligand gated ion channel. We will be discussing in the next few slides. Another example I can give you, serotonin receptors, your 5-HT receptors, except see serotonin, there are different types are there, 5-HT 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. At least till 7 we have explored in pharmacology. And when you talk about 5-HT receptors, 5-HT3 is an exception. It is actually ligand gated ion channel. All right. Okay. So similarly, then of course prostaglandin receptors. Many such examples are there. So these are the examples for the G protein coupled receptors. All right. Now moving on to the second type of receptors, receptors with an intrinsic ion channel, or sometimes it is referred as ligand gated ion channel. Now how does this type, this receptors with the intrinsic ion channel is differ from a normal ion channel? Basically, normal ion channel may not have a specific binding site for the ligand. Okay, a ligand like agonist or antagonist. There won't be any specific binding site. Whereas these receptors with intrinsic ion channel, and I can give you a classic example, is GABA receptor. GABA receptor is a classic example for that. which has got a specific, GABA has got a specific binding site. Now this is again embedded in the cell membrane. Okay, this is a cell membrane. This is a various subunits, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, kappa, etc. Now you can see a specific GABA binding site. That's why it's called GABA receptor. And this is a classic example for the ligand gated ion channel. And one more example I can give you. I told you nicotinic receptors, which are mainly located in the neuromuscular junction. NM receptors, subtypes of the nicotinic receptors, NM receptors are located in the neuromuscular junction, are example for the ligand gated ion channel. So for the time being, please remember these two examples. One is GABA receptor, second one is nicotinic receptors. So here you can see various subunits, and there is an intrinsic channel which remain closed in resting stage. So as long as the ligand binding site is free, not occupied by any sort of agonist, there won't be any intrinsic activity. It remain closed. Now the scenario has changed. What happened? Agonist, if it is GABA receptor, it is GABA. This red circular form is an agonist over here. So if it is GABA receptor, this could be GABA, right? So what happened? This subunits may undergo some conformational change, which in turn leads to opening of the channels. So usually in the case of GABA receptors, what happened? This could be chloride ion channel. And what happened? Opening of the this channel leads to influx of chloride ion into the cells. So this is if this is brain cells, the channel opening of the channel leads to influx of chloride into the brain cells and leads to hyperpolarization of the cell. See, chloride ion, it's an anion. Chloride is anion, and the increased intracellular level of chloride ion leads to hyperpolarization, and this hyperpolarization leads to inhibition of the cellular activity. That's why GABA is generally called as inhibitory neurotransmitter. We will discuss all those things later when we discuss about the CNS, central nervous system, as a separate topic in pharmacology. All right. So something about receptors enclose ion selective channel for sodium, potassium, calcium within their molecules. So what happened? It depends. The channel is intended for the movement of certain ions. I told you this in case of GABA, it was actually chloride. Now if it is a nicotine receptors, the ion is sodium. All right. Now as I told you, binding of agonists at the ligand binding site can lead to conformation change and opening of the channel. So basically it is fastest acting type because there is no other transducer mechanism. Agonist bind on the binding site, open, influx or efflux, and leads to changes, cellular changes. So the examples being already discussed: nicotinic receptors in skeletal muscles, GABA receptors, and 5-HT3 receptors. All right, that is also one more example. I hope you understood. Now the third one is enzymatic receptors. So the enzymatic receptors, basically again this is also a membrane receptors, and sometimes the third type, that is enzymatic receptors, are referred as enzyme linked tyrosine kinase receptors. Enzyme linked tyrosine kinase receptor. So tyrosine kinase is a enzyme which is linked to the intracellular domain. See, I'll directly go to the picture again. As I have told, in case of G protein coupled receptors, there is a transmembrane part, then the extracellular part and intracellular part. Okay. So what happened? Usually this is the extracellular domain serve as the site for binding site, ligand binding site. So when this remain in a resting stage, usually it is attached with the tyrosine kinase with a GDP, okay, with a GDP, usually inactive state. Now what happen once the ligand bind with a ligand binding sites which undergo dimerization, conformation changes and become dimerized form, and this dimerized form trigger the activation of the protein kinase or the tyrosine kinase enzyme. All right. Now what happened? This tyrosine kinase can undergo or which can directly activate several intracellular proteins pathways like RAS, RAF, MEC, etc. And finally, what all these are the phosphorylation process. Okay, all these are the phosphorylation process. Now I'll show you that how it happen. Here, like what happened? One second, it's okay, fine. What happened here? Here, what happened? Like this, there is something called RAS. Imagine this is the intracellular protein inside the cell. Here, your tyrosine kinase is activated by like GTP. GTP, okay, that become GDP. Now RAS, what happened? This RAS will be inactivated. Now further RAS become activator. I mean this activator RAS convert activator RAF RAF and again next protein will be there. I'm finding difficulty to draw here, like I don't have a mouse here, fine. So what happened, this RAF get activated, phosphorylation process. It's a phosphorylation cascade mechanism. I hope you have learned what is a cascade mechanism, especially you have learned a mechanism like activation of the blood clotting proteins. That's a cascade mechanism. The same way RAF will activate next MEC, and finally the protein which go inside the nucleus inside your DNA will be there, and the protein act on the specific part of the DNA, that is called that particular gene part of the DNA, the gene, and which causes transcription and translation of the gene, Now I can explain this with a suitable example. A classic example for receptor, this type of the third type of receptor is insulin receptors. So insulin bind on the receptor here, insulin bind on this receptor. Not this one. Insulin bind on this receptor, undergo dimerization, and the tyrosine kinase activation pathway get activated, and that, as I told you, RAS, GTP, the tyrosine kinase is activated, RAS, then RAF, MEC, and eventually what happened, which can inside the DNA, as I told you, inside the DNA, one second, inside the DNA what happened, it activate the specific site of the gene coded for insulin and causes transcription and translation of the insulin. So this is how when this insulin, okay, so what happened, insulin bind on the specific receptor, and that transcribe and translate for the gene coded for GLUT. I'm sorry, I told you insulin, it is actually GLUT. You have seen that glucose transport channels. So this is a protein, and this protein translation takes place when insulin bind on this a particular site of the gene coded for the GLUT. I hope you understood. So I think I need one more explanation. I think you need one more explanation. I'll repeat. Insulin, imagine this is insulin. Insulin bind on the binding site, undergo conformation change and dimerization, activation of tyrosine kinase, and further RAS, that cascade pathway, and finally a protein, the activated protein enter into the nucleus. There are plenty of gene, and one gene is get activated, and this gene is coded for GLUT refer glucose transport, and that will be translated, and that GLUT is responsible for the glucose absorption. I hope you understood. Now, this is actually I wanted to tell you regarding the tyrosine kinase receptor or enzymatic receptor. These receptors are themselves enzymatic protein, that is the tyrosine kinase. Agonist binding site and catalytic site lies on the either side of the membrane, that is extracellular domain has got the agonist binding site, or even antagonist also bind the same place, and intracellular domain has got the catalytic activity. Tyrosine kinase acts receptor insulin, interleukins, and one more example I can give you, growth hormones. Tyrosine kinase receptor acts on insulin receptors, interleukins or TNF alpha, tumor necrosis factor alpha. These are the examples. I'll give you once again. I'll tell you the examples: insulin receptors, growth receptors, interleukin receptors, and TNF alpha receptors. Okay. Now we are going to the fourth, that last type of receptors. Receptors regulating gene expression, or sometimes it is referred as nuclear receptors. Before I explain, I'll just directly go to this one. Here, one speciality about the fourth receptor. See, first one was G protein coupled receptors. Second one was we discussed about the ligand gated ion channel, and third one was enzymatic receptors or tyrosine kinase link receptors. All these three receptors were occupied or were present in the membrane, across the membrane. Now this is an exception, which is either located in the nucleus or in the cytoplasm. All right. So a primary criteria to become an agonist or a ligand to be on the nuclear receptor is a molecule has to be lipid soluble. The molecule has to be lipid soluble, and lipid soluble. And what happened? Usually the steroid hormones like testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, etc. are basically are the example for the ligands. Such example, nuclear receptor example is receptors for the sex hormones. Okay, corticosteroids, etc. So what happened? Ligands cross the membrane because it is located either in cytoplasm, here in the cytoplasm. Now these are the substrate and the DNA site, binding site. Okay, which once the ligand bind to the membrane, it again undergoes some conformation change, and this complex, receptor ligand complex, cross the nuclear membrane, and inside the nuclear membrane, which bind a specific part of the DNA. It's called hormone responsive element, HRE, hormone responsive element, and which can lead to activation or repression of the gene. Sometimes what happens, some genes can activate for the transcription and translation, and sometimes what happens, some gene can be repressed, means which stop the transcription translation. So the signal can be for the translation process or to inhibit the translation process. Give you some examples. So for example, an example for the repression. Sometimes this corticosteroids, you know, that it inhibit the calcium absorption from intestine. And how it is possible? The calmodulin protein is essential for the calcium absorption. Now, corticosteroids inhibit the calmodulin synthesis. Calmodulin is a protein. So this complex, if it is, imagine this is corticosteroids, and corticosteroids receptors bind on the hormone responsive element and causes repression. And calmodulin and cal binding, all those proteins will be less synthesized and leads to less reaction. And by the whereas In other cases like sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, etc., those muscle protein will be increased. There the transcription translation process will be increased. All right. So protein synthesis, translation, transaction. This is what happened in the fourth example. I told you all the sex hormones. Now I wanted to tell you receptor regulation. There are supersensitivity of receptors and down regulation of the receptors. See, when a receptor is blocked with an antagonist for a long period, what happened? There will be a down regulation. Blocked for a long period, there will be a supersensitivity of the receptor. Okay, and similarly, when a receptor is uh, repeatedly stimulated, there will be a down regulation. So that is called down regulation, and the first one is supersensitivity. Prolonged deprivation of the receptor from its agonist results in supersensitivity of receptors. Propranolol, example is propranolol in angina, clonidine in hypertension. See, this is a classical example. See what happened. Once again, just hold a moment. I need a break. Okay, I'm sorry, I had a call actually. So, supersensitivity of receptors, actually when it keep stimulating the receptor, gradually the എന്താ പറയുക റെസ്പോൺസ് പതുക്കെ പതുക്കെ കുറഞ്ഞു വരും. ഓക്കെ, ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് കോൾഡ് ഡൗൺ റെഗുലേഷൻ. സോ സൂപ്പർ സെൻസിറ്റിവിറ്റി നമ്മൾ കുറേ കാലം ബ്ലോക്ക് ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ പിന്നെ പെട്ടെന്ന് സുപ്രഭാതത്തിൽ വിട്ട് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ വാട്ട് ഹാപ്പൻ, സൂപ്പർ റെസ്പോൺസിബിലിറ്റി ഉണ്ടാവും, സൂപ്പർ സെൻസിറ്റിവിറ്റി ഉണ്ടാവും. സോറി, എനിക്ക് കോൾ ഉണ്ടായി അതിൻ്റെ ഇടയിൽ, അതാണ്. അപ്പോൾ അതിന് ഒരു പ്രോബ്ലം, യൂഷ്വലി വി ടേക്ക് ദിസ് എക്സാമ്പിൾ. See, when in angina cases, angina pectoris cases, sometimes people usually take propranolol. So when you prescribe propranolol to such people, usually a doctor says, please don't take as and when you require. See, it is something which you take regularly. Now, if you want to stop, it has to be dose has to be titrated. Dose has to be titrated. Otherwise, what happens? It can lead to rebound phenomena, and that's the reason why it is so. Because see, the receptor is blocked for quite a long time. Suddenly, you stop. What happens? All the endogenous catecholamines can act on the beta receptors, and that can sometimes even causes myocardial infarction. The same way, if you use clonidine. Clonidine is the alpha 2 agonist, usually used for the treatment of hypertension. So when suddenly if you stop therapy, what happens? It can lead to rebound hypertension. So there are plenty of mechanism. I think we don't have to discuss that. Now the next one, desensitization of the receptors. Usually the opposite of this. You keep stimulating the receptor, there will be down regulation of the receptor. And I'll give you an example, like when you continuously use beta 2 agonists, example salbutamol, your Astalin, which is commonly used for the bronchial asthma. So what happens? Gradually the response may come down. So that's why a break may be required to come back the receptor to the normal activity. So as far as the regulation of the receptors are concerned, you please remember the two terms, super sensitivity of the receptors, that you can remember with the example of propranolol, and down regulation of the receptors or the desensitization of the receptor, that is something like you can remember with the example of salbutamol. Okay, so this is what I wanted to tell you, and functions of receptors and all the theoretical point, like to amplify the signal, to integrate various extra and intracellular regulatory mechanism, to adapt to short-term and long-term chances to maintain homeostasis. All right. So these are the few functions of the receptors, and thank you for your patience to listen the class. And I have a request. We need to mark your attendance. So please, after listening this class, you may comment below this video. After uploading the video, after watching, you may comment your name with your roll number so that we can mark your attendance. And please don't hesitate. If you have any query or a doubt or a question regarding this topic, you may directly ask via my WhatsApp. Thank you. Thank you for listening my class.